Hi, I'm Natasha, the owner and lead candle artist behind Wick'd Petals Candle Company. Today, I'd like to talk to you about goal setting. For me, when I was younger, goal setting wasn't really something I took serious, but now as I have my own business, it is something that I think about almost every day. So today, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how goal setting has shaped my business, has shaped my personal life, and is now helping me shape this presentation. Before we start talking about goal setting, I'd really like to give a little bit of background about my personal life and my business as well. I find learning a lot about how people were before they started their business has really helped me shape my personal life and shape the goals that I created for my business as well. So for me, I graduated high school in 2016. From there, I got accepted into NATE's program. So that's Northern Alberta Institute of Technology in Edmonton. So NATE's program for landscape architecture. This is residential design, commercial design, environmental designs. You're basically incorporating plants and landscapes into other people's spaces. So it was something that I really connected with because my high school had a greenhouse in it. So I was able to take my love of plants with my love of art and kind of combine both of them together. And for me, this was something that I was really attracted to because it seemed like such a hands on job where I'd be able to express, like I said, my love for art and my love for plants. So I started that program in September of 2016, right after I graduated. It was a 2-year program, so at the end of my first year, I actually applied for a job that was outside of the province. April 2019, I got offered this position and I left for Whistler. So it was a 6-month job. I worked the summer in between my first and second year, and I absolutely loved it. It was working that summer in Whistler. It really changed my mindset to sort of see how different jobs can be, and my idea of having a career became a lot different and a lot more diverse by seeing the work that other people do. So after I finished up in Whistler, I once again returned back to NAPE for my second year, and this was really when I started kind of considering that this might not be the right field for me. But of course, I worked every weekend through high school to pay off, to save up and to go to college. So it's just something that I really wanted to continue and I really wanted to graduate from. So in April of 2018, I graduated right from NATE with a 3.8 average out of 4. So I was on the dean's list for honors. So it was something I was really proud of, and I was really excited that I went forward and that I actually graduated with it. So from there, I actually got offered a position at a landscaping firm. So this made me feel really accomplished, as I feel like a lot of people, they're scared once they go through college or university that they may not have a job right after. And for me, feeling like I did, and I just felt so accomplished, and I feel like I completed this big goal that was set out, that not even set out by me, that was set out to be, you go to school for 2 3 years and all of a sudden you need to get a job right after. And for me, being able to start the week after I graduated was just, I felt like I have won it all, that I completed all the goals I wanted to complete. So after a while, I started working this job. I started, like I said, in April. I got to September and I worked all summer like this, 40 to 60 hour work weeks. And I was just unhappy. I was unsatisfied. I started thinking, is this how my life is going to be for the rest of my life? I was so worried that, I went to school and I put on, all this hard work to be working all these long hours, to not being, not spending time with my family, not going on weekend trips, just work, 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 work. And I was so worried that that's really how my life was going to turn out. And, I was only 20 at this time. So thinking about how I'm going to be working in this office for the next 45 years until I retire was something that, just really pushed me over the limit. I really had no idea how people do it. I thought that was normal. I thought I was like every other adult, that this is what you do. You go to college and then you're stuck working, a 9 to 5 job for the rest of your life. And, that thought sort of just stuck in with me. And I was just so unhappy with it, just unhappy, unsatisfied, and it just really started taking a toll on my body and on my mental health. It was something that I wasn't the same person I felt like I was. I didn't really feel, the happy, go lucky Natasha. I didn't really want to do anything. It was just constant work, and it was just something, like I said, I just wasn't myself. I didn't feel like myself. Um, so September rolls around, and there is a few changes within the company, restructuring, stuff that was completely out of my control, and I ended up being let go. So for me, this was a complete shock. For the first time, I really didn't have anything to do. So I was without a job. I was graduated from school. I was living with my mom. And so for the first time, I was sort of unaware on what to do. When I was younger, I was always the type of person who I'd be given, direction, be giving instructions, and I would complete it. So I really didn't make up, my own rules. I was a follower, for lack of better words, and that's something I was really comfortable in, because I was able to take those instructions and do something. It was a task complete, task complete. There was no in between. There was always something to do, and I would always complete it. So, being 8 months post graduating and not having a job, it really opened my mind to see, okay, like we are at a point in my life where I don't know what to do and who to turn to. Both my parents were working, my boyfriend was working, my sisters were working. Everybody had a job around me. And I sort of felt like this failure, because, like I said, for the first time, I didn't have anything. I didn't have anybody telling me what to do. I wasn't at school, I wasn't at work. It was just sort of this empty point. And like I said, I felt really self conscious about it. And instead of exploring that, right now, like going into that and exploring that idea about why I felt self conscious, I just knew that I needed to get a job as soon as possible. So I started looking for jobs, because I knew that I needed to have that safety blanket, that I need that stable job. I need something that's, I can tell people, hey, I'm working here. Yes, I have income coming in. I needed that safety blanket, like I said, of being able to have something. So um, I ended up finding, a job. I stayed there for 2 years. It was something where I wasn't really happy with it, but it had good benefits. It paid a lot more than my previous job. It wasn't too hard of work, but it was something where, I took that feeling of being lost, and I felt like I sort of was coasting through it. It just didn't work out. So this time it was a little bit different, because, like I said, I was still feeling unsatisfied, still not really happy with my life. Um, but instead of stepping away from the job, I decided to keep it, because, like I said, the pay was great, the benefits were great. It was something where I was still able to function in my everyday personal life. Um, but I decided to start incorporating more creativity. So being creative is something that I have always done and always taken, during the hard parts of my life. So when there was a loss, I would always turn towards music, or I would turn towards art or painting, or, it was something that I just needed to be creative. I just needed to make something in order to feel like I was okay, and to sort of fill that loss up. So because I was feeling so unsatisfied with everything, I really decided to take my time and to start adding more creativity into my life. Um, so for me, like I said, I was working that job for 2 years. So flash forward to Christmas 2019, I really decided to start, kind of, like I said, filling that void in my life I had with something creative. So for me, like I said, I've always been really creative. Candle making was the next was the next thing on the list. So I've always been painting, I know how to crochet, like was cross stitching, I was one of those people who tried so many hobbies that I was just fun to try everything because I could say that I did it. So for me, candle making was next on the list, and that was something that I really quite enjoyed. So that summer 2019, I was still working, but I decided to buy some secondhand soy wax and get a couple old recycled jars and some twine and flowers. And I just put it all together and I started making candles. And for me, I often found growing up that I really didn't succeed in anything until I saw it at the end. So, like, as soon as you finish something, you don't really see it coming together, but then you step back and you look at it and you're, wow, like I did this. So, for me, as soon as I started making candles, it sort of just felt like something clicked, So I was able to look at what I made and I was like, this went surprisingly well. I feel all right about this. I had a lot of fun making it, and for me, it was like an instant match. And so I really started experimenting with this a little bit more on my days off. I bought more wax. I bought some fragrance. Like I was playing around with this idea of making candles, and it wasn't until around Christmas time that my mom, because like I said, I was living with her, um, she told me that I should, apply for a farmer's market and sort of see where that went. And I was so nervous to apply for it. I had no intent in selling my candles, let alone just making them as a stress reliever. But for me, being able to sell them and to share, what I've made with other people was amazing. And I never really thought about it before as being able to take my creativity and share with other people. It was always, I do this as, you know, a side project or an art club or, it was never something that I saw going the way it did. So for me, I stepped out of my comfort zone because I was a very quiet person. Stepped out of my comfort zone and I applied for this Christmas market and I ended up getting it. Like I said, I really had no intent of selling candles to people besides, my friends and family. And as soon as, I had my little candles and my little tins and I set up my Christmas display, and it was something where it was just mind blowing how much support I got right off the bat. And I guess I still remember my first market where I had somebody walk up to this booth and I was sitting there with my mom and I was so nervous to talk to people. I was just, how do you market your products? How do you, as being quiet as I was myself, how do I tell people about the things that I've made? Because, I normally kept that to myself. So I had somebody come up and say, these are gorgeous. These are beautiful candles. I'll take one of each. And I look at them and I'm like, one of each. And yep, one of each. It was just the support I got was just outstanding and just completely mind blowing to where, to where I was at a time in my life. And um, so I made $500 at my very first market, and it was just something that really sort of opened my eyes into, hey, this is $500 I didn't have before. Like, this is $500 I used to make sitting at an office for 40 hours a week. But instead, I'm selling my candles, I'm talking to people, I'm socializing, I'm sharing my love of candle making with other people, and they love it. And it was this complete just whirlwind of just believing in the products that I was making and selling them, and to see that, like, stepping outside of my comfort zone, like I said, into selling that to other people was really just amazing. So after Christmas, I decided that I would just kind of go for it. I would start, like my mom said, she really encouraged me to to apply and take those first steps and apply for markets. So it's exactly what I did. I wasn't comfortable with the idea of creating a website yet because it seemed too real for me, and it was something that I just wasn't comfortable with. So for me, I applied for markets because that was something I loved. I was able to still sell, my candles in person, and so that's exactly what I was comfortable with at that stage in my life. So I applied for markets in March, April, May. This was the March, April, May that COVID hit. So for me, this is exactly how it went. I was sitting on my stairs with all my candles, on my stairs with all my candles and market displays and signs and boxes and, everything I had ready to go for my upcoming market. And I got the email that all events have been canceled. And once again, I broke down. It was one of those things where, yet again in my life, I didn't have anything. So, I still was working, but as soon as COVID hit, like, I lost my job. So it was just, I was without a job. I could no longer sell my candles at markets. And it was just that same feeling I had for the third time. And that's really that point when COVID hit that I really took a step back and I told myself, I said, hey, this is it. We're not doing this anymore. So I really, it was that point, and I like to tell people that when I get asked what was the turning point between making candles and turning that from a hobby to a business, it was when things shut down and it was when COVID hit. It was something that I really saw myself, and I completely had a mindset that, for the second time in 2 years, like once again, I found myself without, you know, without a job and in that same sort of loop. And I didn't want to do it again. I didn't want to feel unsatisfied. I didn't want to feel unhappy with myself. I just, I wanted to change my life for the better. And that was really when I started creating goals for my business and for my personal life, because I knew that I didn't want to go through what I went through again. So I started creating goals, and I really wanted to take, you know, where I was in life and the situation I was in and just sort of create something out of it. So like I said, that night is when I really started goal setting, because like I said, my market was canceled, but I had everything ready. Like I was packed, ready to load up the car for this market that was 2 hours away. And it was, it was sad because I had all this stuff and I really had no idea what I was going to do with it. Like, I didn't want to throw it out. I knew nobody was really going to buy it because my friends and family already had candles. So, it was just this sort of thing where, like I said, I had this mind shift change where I was like, nope, this is it. We're not gonna see this as a loss anymore. We're gonna take what's been given to us, the hand that we've been dealt, and the loss that so many people have seen with COVID and everything being shut down and so many people's jobs being lost. I decided, nope, I'm not gonna see this as a negative. I'm, going to try and find the potential in this situation. And for me, that's really when I sat down and I said, okay, I'm ready. I'm going to launch my website. So it was a matter of weeks after, I'd say 1 or 2 weeks after everything shut down, I decided to sit down. I really, you know, that sudden change of plans really caused me to open my eyes. And like I said, I decided to shift that mindset and take the leap and decide to sell my candles to a greater audience. So I sat down and started making, my website. And before I did this, I really need to talk to myself and to, really look at where I wanted this to go. And like I said, that's when I started goal setting and where I really decided to, you know, reevaluate my definition of goals, because for me, I found that when I was younger, the goals that I was being asked to create were really things that I couldn't envision myself doing. So, it was something that I really needed to take a step back and look to say, okay, what are the goals that I want to do? What do I want to do as a person? What do I want to do with my candles? And where do I see that going? We get asked a lot when we're younger and when we're growing up, like, what do you want to be when you're grown up? And that's a goal setting question. A lot of us don't realize, but we're being asked to look into the future and start planning before we really have an idea of what we want to do. So for me, all the typical answers are teachers and astronauts and chefs and all that stuff is 100% okay, but it was nothing that I really envisioned myself doing. And looking back, I understand why. It's because I didn't want to do that. And it was something that, looking at where I am now, I'm really happy with what I'm doing, and being able to sit down and really, like I said, reinvent what goals meant to me was something that really started shaping my business. So my goal setting process really began with me going back to the books. So I've always been somebody who like I said, likes seeing things right in front of me, likes taking something that's given to me and complete it. So for me, I looked up the definition of goals because I never have before. I was curious what the real definition of goals actually was. So I wanted to see how I could take that dictionary meaning and, turn it into something that I could use in my life. So the uh, the Merriam-Webster definition of goal setting states that a goal is the end towards which effort is being directed. If we take a closer look at that, there's really two parts to that. So you already have the end. So the end is, that goal you want to get to, but it's also the end towards which effort is being directed. So you sort of have this like unknown timeline of when, you know, you can get that effort to be directed to that final object, that final place, that final, space where you want that goal to be. So for me, that was what really hit home for me because I really started understanding that goals don't need a timeline. And in the past, I always had this lingering pressure of needing to, set and complete goals by a certain time. It was always, what's your 1 year goal? What's your 3 year goal? What's your 10-year goal? And I feel like that's where a lot of that pressure came for me to, get a career, work that 9 to 5 job, is because I needed to complete those 1, 3, and 5 year goals. And it was crazy. It was just one of those things where I read it and it just completely clicked with me. That relationship between, goals and timelines really created a wedge between the goals that I wanted to create because I felt so pressured to meet those timelines, like finish that assignment like I did in school, that that part really took over my life, which, looking back, I can see how that was one of the reasons I was really unhappy with the decisions I was making, in my personal and in my business life. So when I talk about goal setting, I always like to focus on that end goal versus, the timeline versus that deadline that I need to set and complete it by. For my experience with goal setting, I always find that I like to focus on developing that plan to get to point A to B instead of the time that it takes to get to point A to B. And that really goes back to, that dictionary definition of that end goal and where your effort is being sent to. And like I said, it's a matter of creating that plan that encourages momentum to that end goal, but is realistic and challenging enough to complete it. I often found that in the past, all of my goals were either too easy that I was setting, that I really didn't need to put a lot of effort into it, or they weren't challenging enough where, I wasn't I wasn't really learning anything along the way. And I think that's the most important part about goal setting, is that when you're creating a goal, you need to grow as a person throughout the experience. So if if you're setting a goal for yourself where you feel like you can finish it tomorrow, are you really growing as a person, in that 24 hours? Like I said, it's not about the time, but it's a matter of having that end goal that you want to reach, but growing as a person while you do that. And I really think that's the most important part of goal setting, because like I said, a lot of my goals weren't challenging enough, and I wasn't looking to who I was as a person and who I wanted to be. And it was just something where I was just coasting through it, and yep, check off the list, I did it, check this off the list, I did it. But I wasn't acknowledging the fact that I was growing and I was changing and I was developing into a new person, and I was really experiencing life along the way. It was something that I wasn't really aware of. And now I can sort of say that my goals sort of challenge myself, and I can see, looking back, how I'm a different person now that I was from when I originally set the goal of creating a website. I can see how far along I've come, or even just what has happened to me in these past few years, that it's just really a matter of accepting that the goals that I set are really changing, have really changed me as a person, and I'm really happy for that. So, because this presentation is about goal setting and I really want you to take something from it, I sort of want to share the steps that I've kind of gone through to create the goals that I have, and create those meaningful goals and that plan that focuses on the goals versus that timeline. Um, so, my goals for my personal life and my goals for my business really follow the same steps that I've created along the way, and I've found this process that really works for me, and it's something that I really want to share with you, because if I was able to share this information with myself 5 years ago while I was in high school, I feel like I would have started my business a lot sooner, being aware of what I've learned today. So, for me, the number one step I like to start off with is the number of goals. So, thinking about how many goals I want to set and what main goal I want to reach, I like to focus on setting 2 personal goals and 3 business goals. So these 2 numbers are numbers that work for me at my stage in my life. I'm almost 2 years into my business, and like I said, I just turned 23. I said that earlier in the presentation, but so this is what works for me: is 3 business goals, 2 personal goals. And that was something that I feel like setting these goals, even just for the year or for the next 1 to 2 years. I really, I'm setting that hypothetical timeline, but I don't, I'm not sad if I don't meet it. I'll give you an example. So for me, I have almost 9,000 followers on Instagram. Like, that number just completely blows my mind about how many people are following me on my candle journey on Instagram. So one of the goals that I set for this year was to have 15,000 followers. So at the beginning of the year, I think it was just over 6. So I had this goal, this idea that I wanted to create, 15,000 followers, somebody, to look back and say that there's 15,000 people who are supporting me on my journey. And for me right now, like, I'm halfway through the year recording this, I have almost 9,000. So for me, do I see myself reaching, 15,000 before December? I'm not sure. Probably not, but does that really, do I feel discouraged? Absolutely not. I feel like I still want to reach, that 15,000 number, but when I look back, I have 9,000 people who are supporting me, who are on my team, who are encouraging me, and it's just, how can I be upset and feel discouraged when I have so many people on my team supporting me? And it's one of those things where it's a goal that I'm setting, but to see the journey along the way is just amazing. It's one of those things where, yes, I set a goal, but at the same time, that plan that I'm going to reach that goal, and I'm reaching out to so many people and I'm sharing my products, and it's just really something I'm not discouraged about. Um, I'll give you an example for my personal life as well. For me, it was to become okay with myself and to accept who I am as a person. And for me, this has been about meditation. This has been about my mental health. This has been about really listening to me and my body, and, expressing who I am as a person and saying what I want to do, and just really being genuine with my feelings and my mindset. And for me, that goal has no timeline because I'm always learning, I'm always growing as a person, but it's something I'm setting that as a goal so that I have in my mind that's something I need to continually keep working on. Step number 2 is developing sort of that plan, like I've been saying. So for me, that plan is, if we go back to the Instagram followers, that plan is building up my social media, sharing my products with people, allowing myself to meet other people, put myself out there, do events, do markets, having all of these different types of exposure that will really, grow my audience within my business, but also put myself out there. I have to go to different markets, sign up for different events. Like, it's a matter of that journey along the way is really what it's going to make that end goal worthwhile. And speaking on that personal side of things, the plan that I had for learning more about myself and really listening to myself is doing things that I love. I found that, incorporating that into my daily life was really about, learning who I am as a person and being able to enjoy the things that I'm doing and bringing back that happiness into my life. Because for so long, I was doing things for other people and I just wasn't happy. So for me, adding those things into my life, I can see, like I said, that end goal at the end of the hallway, at the end of the tunnel of, being more aware about my mental health and about my body, and my mindset. I can, do these things along the way to do 1 or 2 things a day that are going to make me happy and be able to, acknowledge that end goal in sight. So, number 2 is planning that plan. So, step number 3 is adapting. So, I've never been a fan of change. I am now. I find that I've learned a lot through the past couple of years that has really allowed me to be okay with change. But, when it comes to a goal setting standpoint, you don't plan for change. When you're setting goals, you kind of don't have, this idea that you're going to be forced to change your goals or you're going to be forced to go down a different path to get to your goals. But the number 3 part of my goal step process is allowing yourself to be able to adapt. So with, on my business standpoint, being able to adapt and say, hey, you know, markets are canceled. I'm not being able to get that exposure I need to reach that goal of having 15,000 followers. So it's a matter of, how am I going to adapt to that? I'm not going to change my goal. I'm not going to get rid of it. I'm not going to see it as a loss. I'm going to simply adapt, and I'm going to, change the way I'm doing things. And from there, that's why I created my website, because I still wanted to be able to reach the audience that I was getting, but still being able to interact with people. It was just, behind a screen, not in person, but, being okay with being able to adapt is really something that's important. And, seeing that in my personal life as well, like there's many changes I've faced, when it comes to COVID and, relationships that I've lost and relationships that I've gained and jobs that I've lost. And there's just been so many changes through this last year that I think it's so important that when you look at setting a goal for yourself, you have to be okay with being able to plan for adaptation, being able to plan for change. Because once you're okay with that concept, you're able to account for anything that life may give at you. And that's really how you become a stronger, more versatile person, is developing and adding, adaptation into your skill set as a person itself. So, to recap that and to go over that again, my three important steps I have when creating goal setting that I like to do in my personal and business life are creating the number of goals, focusing on what and how many goals I want to create. Number two is that plan. So, planning on how I'm going to get from point A to B without, that relationship and introducing a timeline. And number three is adaptation. So being able to see your goals, but being able to be okay with changes that might pop up and get in your way from creating that, step A to step B. Um, so for me, those three steps have really helped me in my personal and in my business life. And looking back now, I really wish I had, the skills that I've learned as a 23-year-old to be able to tell my 16, 17, 18-year-old self. I think, being able to plan goals in the future for myself without being pressured by a timeline is something that's really important, and is, if that's the one thing you take from this presentation, I really hope that it's being okay with setting goals without knowing when they're going to be complete. Because that, like I said, that's the number one thing that is so crucial in goal setting that I've learned that I really want to share with you. As far as my goal setting presentation, this does conclude what I have written, but I am going to put my email and my website at the bottom of this video so that you're able to contact me if you have any questions regarding goal setting, or if you're just looking for another young mentor while starting your small business. I had so many people who offered to help me while I was starting, and I just love to give that back and be able to offer that help to somebody else who is starting out. Thank you so much for watching, and please contact me if you have any questions.